What's up, guys? Mike Thomas, aka the Young Trishula here. Yesterday I posted a quick video of just me playing some Dragon Link, showing a bit of the grind game off against a Drytron player, and got a couple comments on that video asking me to post my deck list for Dragon Link. So thought I'd just go ahead and show off my deck list. Hopefully you guys enjoy this, and this will give you some insight into how I play Dragon Link. It's a deck I've had a lot of success with, not only in Master Duel, but in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG as well. So let's just hop straight into it. So here we are with the deck list. I first want to just take a quick second to talk about a question that I've been getting a lot more recently with the release of Master Duel, which is like what variant of Dragon Link I'm playing. I'm not really sure what people are asking about when they're asking what variant do you play. People have asked, do you play the Dragon Maid variant? Do you play the Dragoonity variant? I'm not sure exactly if they're asking whether or not I'm just including copies of Tidying in my deck, or if people are confusing different Dragon decks with Dragon Link. So to just briefly explain what Dragon Link is kind of just a mishmash of all the different good dragon cards that are available in Yu-Gi-Oh! There just happens to be a lot of them available in the Master Duel card pool at the moment. So this deck is not, a Rocket deck. It's not a Dragon Maid deck. It's not a Dragoonity deck. It is a Dragon deck, so it is very interchangeable with all these cards. So I'm going to quickly go through all the cards, just read them off quickly, and kind of go through the thought process behind this deck. So I'm going to start off by quickly just going over the main deck monsters. I know that the deck starts with the Effect Veiler. We're going to skip over the hand traps. I'll talk about that towards the end. So we start with 3 Black Metal Dragon as our first starter. So this already might be a little bit odd if you're familiar with Dragon Link. Dragon Link normally plays Seifert as its starter. However, Black Metal Dragon is a little bit cheaper, so a little bit easier to make in Master Duel, especially if you're free to play, which this account is. But as you can see, we are not hurting on our super rare credits or our ultra rare credits. So Black Metal Dragon is just a very strong starter since it gets you into your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon very easily, and it plays really well into Droll Lockbird. I don't know if it's been patched, but there was recently a bug with how Droll Lockbird worked in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, where Droll Lockbird was performing like Ash Blossom. It was not somewhere you could just chain it on the same chain. So for that reason, I think people are still playing Droll Lockbird in their main decks. So we are playing what is sometimes known as the anti-Droll variant of Dragon Link. And in the anti-Droll list, you usually play Black Metal as your primary starter over Seifert, whereas in a Lancia-based format, you usually start with Seifert rather than Black Metal Dragon. But that's just a small thing. But I think Black Metal is just a really nice starter. It's one of the 2 best starters in the deck. We play the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. This is kind of the win con of the deck. If you don't know, when it is equipped to a monster, your opponent cannot special summon. And because Union Carrier happens to be legal in Master Duel, you can actually just equip this to just about anything in your deck and lock your opponent out of the game. So it is a really strong card, very much worth playing. So we're going to skip over the maxis, and we're going to talk just about all the rocket monsters together. I'm going to group them together. We play the kind of standard package of 3 Tracer, 2 Synchron, 1 Recharger. There are alternate ratios that you can play, but this is, the best ratio for consistency and also for longevity, with the 2 copies of Synchron, 1 for extending, 1 for follow-up. Not too much that needs to be said about the 2 Synchron, 3 Tracer, and 1 Recharger, but Tracer is obviously the heart and soul of the deck if you are unaware, so definitely want to be playing this card at 3. You can get away playing it at 2, but playing it at 3 is very nice. We play 1 copy of Wyverburster and 1 copy of Collapse Serpent. Now, These cards are at 3 in Master Duel, which is really nice. You could, if you really wanted to, play 3 and 3. However, I prefer just playing the 1 and 1 with 3 copies of Chaos Base, just to give ourselves a little bit more room for flexibility in the deck. But, you know, that's just me. That's just me. You know, you might want to experiment with those ratios because regardless of whether or not you have the Chaos Base, if you're playing more copies of Wyverburster and Collapse Serpent, you would then obviously be able, you know, to search them regardless. You know, regardless of whether or not you have the Chaos Base, you'd always be able to loop back into them. So that's something to consider, but we're just playing the 1/1/3 Chaos Space just to save space in the deck and make room for other cards. Getting on to Seifert, we mentioned briefly, Seifert is probably the best starter Dragon Link has outside of the Black Metal Dragon. So not only can it tribute itself to get the Wyverburster or the Collapse Serpent, it can also tribute itself to get the Tracer, and then if you have another card too, you could tribute it to get a Levianeer. So very good card, and especially with its graveyard effect allowing you to add that Levianeer back to your hand. Very versatile, very useful. It's also a light attribute, so overall insanely good card. Now we do play 1 copy of Chamber Dragon Maid. This card is this kind of counts as like your 6th normal summon, except you don't really want to draw a Chamber. It's kind of hard to explain, but Chamber is just kind of a card that you sort of hope to mill off of Chaotic Magical, and just kind of when she comes up, she comes up. If you draw one of the trap cards with the Dragon Ravine, you can send her there. She's also a really good card to summon off of the seals. So she's in the deck. What this really does is that this gives us just another layer of interruption in the deck with the tidyings, and just gives you a little bit extra bit of a grind game as well, gives you some extra resources. So she's not bad. It's not a very big engine to squeeze into the deck, so I think it's still worth playing her, though you could probably cut her for hand traps if you are queuing into, you know, a lot of Drytron or something like that. We next play 1 copy of Destrudo. I've been considering bumping Destrudo up to 3, but just the 1 copy of it has been fine so far. I actually don't usually use Destrudo too often, just simply because I tend to find myself having the resources to not need Destrudo. But if your opponent does hand trap you, Destrudo is very nice. It can summon itself from the hand or graveyard by paying half your life points, and it is a tuner. It is a dragon, so you can send it off of your Dragon's Ravine. You can mill it off Chaotic Magical. You can bring it back with Pisty if it gets banished. It is very strong card, very versatile, very nice inclusion into the deck. It's also a level 7, so you can search it with Seifert by tributing the next card, being Absolrouter Dragon. Absolrouter Dragon is a kind of part of the Rocket engine, kind of not. If you control a Rocket monster, you can summon Absolrouter, and if it is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Rocket from your deck to your hand. So usually you're sending this card off of a Dragon's Ravine or tributing it with Seifert in order to just search a Rocket Tracer. So it is kind of a brick, but, you know, it's not a bad brick because it can summon itself. So there's a lot of times if you open stuff like Quick Launch plus the Absolrouter Dragon, you can just put them on the field and go straight into a Chaotic Magical, mill 5 cards, search a Synchron, and, you know, get a lot of advantage that way. This card's very good. Next, we play 3 copies of Noctivision Dragon. Noctivision is another one of those really strong cards that not only chain blocks to protect your Striker Dragon, but also allows you to put another dragon onto the field and draw a card when you link summon with it. I'm playing 3 of it just because I really enjoy getting those extra draws, getting those extra bodies on field. Noctivision is a little bit worse in Master Duel, as I'm finding, because of how Master Duel treats hand effects. They are treated similar. So Master Duel handles hand effects like the OCG would handle it, so it actually does not chain block for Striker Dragon unless you have another card in that chain. So Noctivision is actually quite a bit worse than it is in the TCG, though I still think the card is absolutely wonderful. I would not drop the card from the deck, but maybe I might cut it down to 1 or 2 with some more experimentation in the future. Just not really sure what I would go for, since the card quality in this deck is already so high. It's really hard to find other cards that you'd want to play unless they're just other hand traps. And then rounding out the dragons, we obviously played the one copy of Levianeer. This is kind of one of your boss monsters of the deck, being able to summon it out and rip cards out of your opponent's hand, shuffling them back to the deck, or destroying cards on the field by banishing either all darks or all lights. It does have another effect that you can banish 3 lights in order to reborn a monster, though that doesn't come up too often because the number of lights that this deck plays is a little bit limited. You have to manage your lights a little bit intelligently when you play this deck. Finally, we have the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. This obviously is the card that you're going to search off of the Black Metal Dragon, and it is also the card that you can summon off of your Hieratic Seals if you were to get Nibiru. Now, not many people on Master Duel actually do play a copy of Nibiru. It doesn't come up as often, and I feel a lot better just using it earlier in the turn rather than conserving it, trying to play around a Nibiru like I would in the TCG. So very, very good card, very flexible, and as you might have seen if you watched the grind game video, this card is absolutely instrumental in grind games. Very, very good card. Now, let's circle back. Let's talk about the hand traps. We are playing a very light hand trap ratio in this list, so depending on the kind of decks that you're queuing into, you might want to change that. I'm playing 3 copies of Max C because this will just more or less deter most combo decks from playing, and if they do play, there's a lot of really good cards in our deck that we can draw. Almost every card in this deck is good, something that you'd want in your hands, so very happy anytime my opponent wants to take a Max C challenge. With that in mind, we also play 1 copy of Effect Veiler, 1 copy of Nibiru. Since the Dragon Link deck is very, very good at breaking boards, it can play into interruptions extremely well. I'm not usually too scared of, my opponent making a board, which is why I don't feel the need to play too many hand traps in this deck. But in case my opponent wants to set up, some kind of wombo combo that I can't deal with, I do want to have a copy of Nibiru and a copy of Effect Veiler on hand so that I can allow my opponent to combo and let them give me as many Maxi cards as they want. I can reveal that Nibiru, and then if they try to negate Nibiru, say with an Apollo, I can chain the Veiler, negate that negate, and then just clear their whole field and start my next turn with an absurd number of cards in my hand. So that's why those 2 cards are in the deck. They also happen to be lights, which is really good for the first spell card that we're going to talk about, which is Chaos Space. This card is pretty straightforward. It searches the light and dark babies. It also can search the Levianeer from your deck, which doesn't come up too often, but it comes up occasionally. It's good to know about it. And not only that, but it can also recycle your banished monsters and draw you cards, so it is a very, very good tool to have in the deck. And just by playing this card too, you can avoid having to play the extra copies of Wyverburster and Collapse Serpent, though you could choose to play multiple copies if you wanted. Next, we will discuss, I'm going to skip over the field spells and talk about those at the end. We're going to play 3 copies of Quick Launch. This card is very straightforward. It is just an extender. It special summons a rocket monster from your deck. It can't attack and it's destroyed in the end phase, but that usually never matters. So very good card, basically emergency teleport for dragons. Then we play 3 copies of the World Legacy Guard Dragon. This card used to be absolutely disgusting when we had LP. However, we don't have LP, so it's a little less good. But because of how much of the Dragon Link deck is still available, this card is actually still really strong. Being able to just reborn any dragon monster and then move your zones makes Pisty plays a lot easier and allows you to combo a lot further when you draw this card, which is generally appreciated in the Master Duel Dragon Link list because we're actually trying to set up a little bit bigger of a board with the Union Carrier lock if we can manage it. It's also really nice because if you were to mill the Union Carrier lock, or if you needed to discard your Buster Dragon or normal summon it for whatever reason, you can also have the option of adding a card back to your hand rather than special summoning it. So you could add back to your hand and then use that to equip with your Union Carrier. Very, very good card, very flexible. Definitely would not cut this. Then for the two bricks, the 2 field spells, they're not really bricks, but it never feels good to draw them. We have the Dragon Ravine, which is essentially just Foolish Burial, but it's searchable. And then we have the Boot Sector Launch, which turns all of your rocket monsters into Extender. So this deck would look extremely normal summon heavy if it were not for Boot Sector Launch, because every single one of these rockets can be specialed out of your hand. They're not true normal summons. So very, very good card, very important card. And a lot of people, you know, especially on Master Duel, where people haven't been playing against Dragon Link for, you know, a year and a half now, people do not recognize the value of Boot Sector Launch the way that they should. So a lot of times this card goes through and it feels very good. Finally, to finish off the deck, play 2 copies of the Dragon Maid Tidying just to finish off the Dragon Maid package. This is, again, just to give you a little bit more of a grind game, give you another layer of interruption. Not as important as it is in the TCG to deal with Mystic Mine, because Mystic Mine is banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but still a good card, potentially cuttable, definitely strong. Going into the extra deck, obviously we play 3 copies of Striker Dragon because they give us 3 copies of Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon is by far the best extra deck monster in your deck. Not only does it get you Boot Sector Launch, but in the mid game it turns into a monster reborn by targeting your Rocket Recharger and being able to summon back basically everything from your graveyard. This card is insanely good. 100% do not cut this card from 3. If you play any less than 3 of this card, you are playing this deck incorrectly. I cannot stress this enough. We then play the 1 copy of Pisty because it's all that Konami will allow me to have, so I guess I have to play it. We play 2 copies of Hieratic Seal, probably the next best extra deck card in the deck. It is a nice interruption on the opponent's turn, being able to tribute itself to non-targeting bounce something, and when it is tributed, it can special summon any dragon from my deck by making it a 0/0. Important to note about Hieratic Seals is it doesn't have to tribute itself, it can actually tribute any monster from your hand or field. So if you're ever afraid of Called by the Grave, you can tribute another card and bounce something in order to play around it. We are back playing 1 copy of Crystron Halki Fibrax. The reason that we're playing Halki Fibrax in the deck is because we play the World Legacy Guard Dragon again. World Legacy Guard Dragon, very strong card in combination with Hulk because it can set up for lethals very easily by special summoning a rocket monster like Rocket Synchron, making it into Pisty, moving that Pisty, summoning anything back from your graveyard, then going for a Striker Dragon. Since you have 3 of it, you can now spare extra strikers, popping that Pisty, getting back that Rocket Synchron or any other rockets that might be in your graveyard, especially if there's a recharger in the graveyard, and then you can start moving up into higher links like Nightmare Unicorn or Access Code Talker. In other versions of this list, I was playing cards like Boral Sword and Apollo, which you can also use to great effect with this combination. To finish off the Link 2s, we played the Romulus. Romulus just exists to search Dragon Ravine. It can also open up some lines of play with its secret effect to summon a dragon from your hand, but preventing you from using it as link material and negating its effects. That does come up sometimes. We play a copy of Quadboral Dragon. This card really only comes up if you get Nibiru'd, so that is to say not too often in Master Duel, but Tri-Brigade is a very, very popular strategy in this game, and Quadboral absolutely eviscerates Tri-Brigade players, so very, very good card. Union Carrier is, as we mentioned before, it sets up the extra deck lock with Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. You can also sometimes use it to put stuff like a Safer in the graveyard, or put stuff like you can also use it sometimes, put stuff like Safer in the graveyard, or to put a black metal in the graveyard and trigger it to get a red MD. Very rare that that comes up, but it sometimes does, so good to know. And then, as we mentioned, we play Unicorn and Access Code Talker just to attempt to kill our opponents. Then returning to the Synchros real quick, we play the Borlode Savage Dragon, level 8 negate, pretty solid, pretty straightforward, don't need to talk about it too much. We play the Chaotic Magical or Papega Dragon. If it's synchro summoned, you mill the top 5 cards of your deck and then add a light or dark. Can also summon itself back from the graveyard by banishing a light or dark from your hand or graveyard. So very good card, helps a lot with the grind game, helps you get your resources into play. Exceptional card, would not play this deck without it. Very good card. And then, of course, we play the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which is just a level 9 Synchro monster, which you can make easily by using Synchron plus your Hot Red. Or you can summon this by using Synchron plus your Chaotic Magical. This comes up quite a bit in the grind game because you can link off your Chaotic Magical and then normal summon a Rocket Synchron to reborn that Chaotic Magical immediately and go into the Hot Red. So very good mid-game option, very good turn 1 option, because I am going to prioritize getting this Hot Red onto the field every time over the Savage if I can manage it, because it means that I'm getting an extra card with the Chaotic Magical by milling 5 and also giving myself the ability to summon it back. So very, very good card. It also has a special effect that it can reborn a tuner from the graveyard, which if you watched the grind game video, it did come up and sometimes allows you to make a Savage Dragon in your main phase too. So very good to keep in mind. That about does it for the deck profile. If you do have any questions or are curious about how I play this deck, do let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer those questions or maybe make another video on Dragon Link. Let me know in the comments, but hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.